In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to create a Visual Basic.NET Hello World application, and we're going to create that Hello World application in the context of a console application. So the first thing you might be asking yourself is, what is a console application? Well, this is a new concept to .NET, and it wasn't in previous versions of Visual Basic. And console applications are basically a very simple way to get started using the actual language without having to worry about any user interface issues. Basically, have you ever seen the old DOS prompt where you'd have a little window, black window with C:/ and then a little bracket arrow pointing out with a little cursor under it? That's where your application will run. So we're going to do very limited things in terms of user interface, like just print things out to the screen. So we'll be using lots of these console.writeLine statements. There's a console object which basically says reference the console object and write this line to the computer screen. And a Hello World application is basically the first type of application you always write in a given language. So this is a great place to start. What we'll do is write a simple application, and all we'll do is when you run it, it will print Hello World to the Windows console. One thing to note about console applications, we'll note this in just a moment, is that they start in the submain procedure, and I'll explain that in just a moment. So without further ado, let's take a look at Visual Studio and create our Hello World application in a console. So here I've opened up Visual Studio, and the first thing that I'm going to do is go to the File menu and then select New, hover my mouse cursor over it and go to Project and select it. The New Project dialog opens. As you can see, I've selected Visual Basic Projects and the project types, and in the Templates window you can look through, but the one that we're most interested in right now is Console Application. Now what I want to do here is change my location because I don't like putting things in my documents personally. I created a projects folder on my C drive, and I'm going to call this Hello World, but all I'll need to do, let's type this, Hello World, and then type in here, Projects, Hello World. Whoops. As you can see, though, the project will be created at C Projects Hello World, Hello World. We don't want that. So we'll just back this out and go just to C Projects. So the project will be created at C Projects Hello World. That's exactly where I want it. So I'm going to select the OK button. And when we do, notice what comes up. This is the default template for a console application. You see, first of all, a module named Module 1 and an end module. Inside the module, we see indented in two lines of code. One is submain and end sub. And it's within the context of this procedure, the submain, where we'll write our code. And our goal is to simply write out the word Hello World to the console. So I'm going to type in the console object dot write line. I'm going to open up the parenthesis and type in Hello World. End the quote, end the parenthesis, and hit the Enter key. And that's it. A very simple program. We're going to hit the Save button, so we save our application. And then we'll select the Build menu option and select Build Solution. Now notice that the output window pops open, and let's take a look at that real quick. It gives us details about how the Visual Studio.NET and the Visual Basic compiler progressed as they tried to build your application into a .NET assembly with a .exe extension on the end of it. The build started Project Hello World with a certain configuration, preparing resources, updating references, performing main compilation. All these things are steps that the compiler and that Visual Studio.NET have to negotiate when they begin to compile your source code into something that's computer readable, or at least readable by the .NET runtime. Since we didn't have any bugs in our application, we get the statement done and what the results were. 1 succeeded, 0 failed, and 0 were skipped. Very good. So if I simply move my mouse cursor away and just click somewhere in this area, the output window goes away. Now we need to test our application. To do that, I can simply hit the Start button here at the top, but you'll notice what happens whenever I do that. Did you see that? Did you blink? The application started, printed out Hello World, and it ended. So ultimately, if we want to actually watch what's going on, we're going to have to open up the Windows command window, which looks a lot like the DOS prompt from years ago, so that we can navigate to our application's executable and then execute it and be able to look at the results without having to strain our eyes. So to open up the Windows console, I'll go to Start, and this is in Windows XP, Run, and type in the word CMD. That's already selected for us. I'm going to click OK, and when I do that, the command window opens. So now I'm going to navigate to my appropriate folder. I'm going to go CD Projects, CD Hello World, and I'm going to do a directory, and I'm going to say CD bin, because whenever you create an assembly, it's placed into the bin directory of your project. And I'll do a directory on my bin folder, and you can see right here that I have helloworld.exe. So I'm going to type in helloworld.exe, and I get Hello World. So we've successfully built our first Visual Basic .NET application, albeit it was fairly humble, but it did teach us some important information about getting into the Visual Studio IDE, compiling an application, saving the files, opening up the command window, and being able to execute and test our application. In future videos, we'll talk more about more complex command lines, obviously, than just writing out to the console window. We'll also talk about how console applications can be extended to accept parameters, so that we could type in Hello World and then maybe even pass in the name of a couple of people and have them be printed back to the screen. That does it for this video. Thanks for watching.